a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. I've always wanted to say that. You know that line from Star Wars, but in all seriousness, a galaxy that has remained unchanged for 7 billion years has just been discovered by astronomers. And here to talk to us about it is Dr. Mike Zevin from Adler Planetarium. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me on.
Okay, fossil galaxy, explain that. What is that?
Well, galaxies, even though they, live for billions of years, our Milky Way has been around for over 10 billion years. They go through a lot of changes over time. They interact with other galaxies, they're forming new stars. But every once in a while, you'll get one of these galaxies that's kind of like an ancient relic of how it was in the very early stages of formation. And this is what this fossil galaxy is that was discovered recently. So this galaxy, like you said, seems relatively unchanged for about 7 billion years. So it's a great way for astronomers to study kind of the early conditions of the universe and the ways that these galaxies actually form in the early times of our universe's history.
So how do people determine that a galaxy is unchanged?
Well, there are a couple ways. So one is by looking at all the stars in the galaxy. So stars emit light, and stars that are young, stars that are being born, emit a different kind of light than old stars that have been around for a very long time. Another thing is this galaxy is very compact, so it's squished together much more than something like our Milky Way. And these are both signs that it has been relatively unchanged. It hasn't gone through mergers with other galaxies that have triggered star formation in it whatsoever. And exactly how these things come to be is not precisely known, but one of the ideas is that these galaxies have a massive black hole in their center that kind of expels all the gas and kind of makes it frozen from its initial state.
Dr. Zevin, walk me through this. Bring me into your world. How does someone discover a fossil galaxy? Are you looking at images? Are you looking through telescopes? Like, how do you discover something like this when obviously you've been examining our galaxies for quite some time?
Yeah, and there are hundreds of billions of galaxies out there in the universe. These are really rare ones to find. So the way that we look for them is using what we call survey telescopes. So these are telescopes that aren't looking at a very particular small part in the sky, but rather looking at a large swath of the sky and able to image many, many galaxies at once. So the Rubin Observatory is one that has big US contributions that's just getting started right now. But by doing this, you can find these oddities, these kind of rare objects in the universe. This one in particular might be something that's like a 1 in a million type of galaxy out there.
So I know a lot of people are wondering this, but what did you find inside of the galaxy? Is there life?
So this galaxy is very far away. It's about 3 billion light years away. So we're actually seeing how it was 3 billion years in the past. Much too far away to possibly try to understand whether there are, planets that we can detect or life. Really, we're only constrained to our Milky Way to be able to do that right now. So as far as life, we have no idea, but there's no reason to think that this galaxy didn't form planets similar to how our Milky Way does.
Someone may be watching this and thinking, okay, we know about a lot of galaxies. We know about, for example, Mars and places like that we may never get to go to. Why is this important for the everyday man and woman?
Well, I think it's important because we all care about why we're here and how we came to be. And looking at these very ancient relics, these fossilized galaxies, are giving us a glimpse into kind of the initial conditions of our universe. So it's allowing us to not just look back 3 billion years, but look back much further and further in time to see what our very early universe was like. And also tells us a little bit of our own story in the Milky Way, why the Milky Way is special and why, it evolved to give us the beautiful galaxy that we live in.
Can you talk to me about the differences you found in the Milky Way galaxy and then this other galaxy?
So some of the differences are that this other galaxy is very old and dead. By dead, I mean that it's not forming new stars. So we estimate, the astronomers that were part of the study estimate that about 99.5% of the stars are kind of relic stars of the very early times of this galaxy's history. Galaxies like our Milky Way have gone through collisions in the past. We have an anticipated collision with our nearby Andromeda galaxy in about 4.5 billion years. But somehow this galaxy was just lucky enough that it didn't go through any of these major collisions that triggered new formation of stars or changed the shape of it that much. So it's much more compact and has much older stars than our Milky Way does.
So now that this has been discovered, what's the process? Is this something that will continue to be watched over the years? Will there be a search for even more galaxies around it? what's kind of like the future of all of this?
Yeah, the future is finding more galaxies that are in these kind of fossilized states. It'll give us a better census of what the early universe was like. So there are other telescope missions that are looking for other examples of these fossilized galaxies. This was the farthest one that we've found so far, so it's kind of the closest link to that early universe that we've had. But finding more of these and starting to understand their properties, why the star formation turned off in these, why they didn't interact with other galaxies over their billions of years history, are all important clues to understanding the very early universe.
So you talked a little bit about how they prevented from merging and things like that. Why is that? Why is the stars, why are they certain like a billion years dead? What happened with the stars and why they're not forming anymore?
So why it didn't merge with other galaxies, that's kind of a mystery. It might just be that this was a particularly lucky galaxy, or unlucky, depending on how you look at it, that it didn't, interact with other galaxies nearby. The stars being dead, that's also a mystery. Something had to have happened to kind of expel a lot of the gas from this galaxy to prevent further star formation from happening. So, for example, our Milky Way is producing about one new star every single year. Whereas this galaxy is mostly stars that have been made, billions and billions of years ago. One of the ideas of how you can expel this gas in these galaxies is through something called an active galactic nucleus. So it's a supermassive black hole. These things are sitting in the centers of most galaxies, but these supermassive black holes can kind of eject gas from the galaxy and cause the star formation to effectively turn off.
Now, Doctor, help me understand this. Does this fossil galaxy have a name? Is this it? KIDSJ0842 plus 0059?
Yeah, isn't it catchy?
How does it get, no, I'm so confused. How does it get that name? I mean, that's so, for the average person looking at that, it's so complex.
Yeah, it's not as flashy as something like the Milky Way or the
Yeah.
Andromeda, but when you're dealing with astronomical objects, we have so many billions of things that they're typically cataloged in pretty regular ways. The KIDS, the kids, that's a particular survey, the one that first found this particular galaxy. And then the J and a bunch of numbers are coordinates of where this thing is.
Wow. That's really
But
interesting.
maybe someone will come up with a better nickname for it that'll come off the tongue a little easier.
And scientifically, though, how does that work when you name them? Like, okay, we know the Milky Way. That's common knowledge now, right? Like, who comes up to define what the name will actually be and determine it?
Yeah, that's a good question. There's not really a scientific way to do it. Sometimes kind of popular opinion or nicknames will pop up, and then people will start calling it that. But in science articles and things, it'll always have these kind of boring names.
Interesting, not boring, just interesting.
And then lastly, can you tell us about any future developments that you're looking for specifically with this galaxy? I know we talked about other galaxies, but what are you looking for in this galaxy?
So I'm not involved with this study, so I don't work on these kinds of galaxies typically. I'm presuming that people will do more detailed observations of this galaxy, get detailed what we call spectra, so break the light from this galaxy up into its component colors. This can tell us about the chemical abundances and things like the star formation that is happening in these types of galaxies. But like I was saying earlier, just finding more of these will get us a better census of these rare objects in the universe. We have so many galaxies to look at in the universe that we need these big surveys to find the interesting oddities that can help us connect ourselves to these distant parts in the universe.
I find it so interesting. I mean, I really do. We could talk about this all day, and I really appreciate you coming on with us, Dr. Mike Zevin. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. That was interesting.
That was so cool.
Yeah, very interesting. Very detailed, too.
Yeah.
He knew
I
everything.
feel like things with astronomy and stars, there's never enough information. You never know everything.
Yeah, because we want to know. I think we live, because we're here on Earth, we feel like there's an answer for everything. And some things, I think, in that world just don't have a definite answer. Right. So, yeah, it's always almost like a mystery. And I think that's why people are so intrigued by it. So, did
you like that growing up? Were you into stars and space and
I
planets?
was, yeah. I had a telescope and everything growing up, and was totally into it. And I still, when you get into the hustle and bustle of life, sometimes you forget to look up. But it's so amazing to see. Like, I've lived in a lot of different places, and in certain places you see everything very clearly, and then you move to another state or city and it's all, but you don't see anything. So I always found that to be very interesting too. So
I agree. I've always loved to go outside and do a little stargazing. My dad lives in the country, so when you don't have those city lights,
yes,
you really get to see how big the world is, or kind of think about how big the world is.
Yeah, looking at the Big Dipper, the Little Dipper, all very interesting.